Once there was a great preacher who was famous throughout Christian lands for the power of his words. But he decided that this was not enough, that he would leave the Christian lands, go over the narrow seas, go north to where the pagans dwell, and teach them his way. And so he left the lands he knew and went off to strange kingdoms. And there he preached a sermon that was justly famous throughout the lands, for he would show the pagans that their lives were but like the path of a swallow flying through the high rafters of some lord's building. And as that flight is a momentary thing, so their life is momentary when set against the life of their spirit. And yet, as the swallow as it flies through the hall is beset by danger, the fires and nets of men, so are we all beset by danger. And he would tell them that their gods could save them, and that all could save them was his God. And many men hearkened to him, and were so converted by fear. And Anthony was proud. He grew proud of this sermon, of this idea, and he travelled from place to place, feeling he was doing great work. But one time, when he was travelling between two towns, he heard a clip, 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 clip coming behind him. He turned round, for it sounded to him as if it was a goat with just 2 feet. And he turned, and he saw the strangest of figure. Little horns it had, and little legs, goat's legs. And as he watched, it jumped up onto him, pinning him to the ground, and it stamped on him. 3 times it stamped. And each time it stamped, his heart leapt and leapt and leapt, and he felt the panic rise and rise and rise and rise. And then it spoke and said, I am the God of panic. And now I have converted you to my faith. Now I have made you fear. You will follow me. And Anthony, desperate, reached for his cross and prayed. And the figure vanished. Well, this made Anthony think that maybe conversion through fear was not conversion at all. And he went back to Christian lands, where there had arisen a great heresy. And he tried to overcome it, this time through study. He learned and preached, and learned and preached, and became famous for his learning. And many men hearkened to him what he said. And again he grew happy. But one time, when he was travelling between Greece and Italy, he heard a clop, 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 clop coming behind him. And he turned, and there was the strangest of figure. A great horse it was, but with the head of a man. And it came up close, far too close, and said, Anthony, my lover in reason, you know that God can be trapped by the nets of logic. Let us go, you and I, under that rock, and let us study, and set God in his heaven, or wherever we want to put him, through the cleverness of our ideas. And Anthony, hearing the blasphemy, ran as hard as he possibly could, ran as fast as he possibly could, away over the hills. And as he went, he lamented how hard it was, how very hard it was to resist temptation. And how strange that God seemed to have ensnared our good acts far more subtly than our evil. And in answer, he felt a small voice in his heart. And the small voice said, no, it is not so difficult to resist evil. All you need is humility. And Anthony wondered what it meant. But as he was walking through the plain beyond the hills, he saw a little pot of gold, and he looked inside, and there was a treasure. And written around the rim of the pot was a writing, and the writing read, this is yours, Anthony, to do good with. And he smiled and said, no. I might be able to do good with this money, but I'm going to renounce possessions. I'm going off into the caves to live. And off he went. For a year and a day he dwelt, a lone hermit in a cave, starving himself, thinking that this would at least make him not proud. But you know, it was strange. Very strange. At the end of that year and a day, a quiet, selfish pride seemed to be everywhere in his spirit. It seemed not to have gone when he looked at himself. If anything, he was prouder than ever he had been before. And he wondered what to do. He wept and said, I better return to mankind's places. And as he said so, he said a prayer for deliverance from pride. And when he opened his eyes, he was not alone. The cave was full of shining figures. And he said, who are you, angels, or what? And they said, we are a legion, for we are that host that is created, those spirits created when your mind reasons more truly, your eye seizes further, and your heart feels more deeply than your fellow men. And we are many and powerful, for even now your ideas and your deeds are on every man's lips, and every man sings your praise. And Antony once again felt a fierce pride in his heart. And yet in answer came that still, quiet voice, telling him to be humble. And he said, no, no. You are not mine to command. Maybe you do come from my ideas, but you belong in the hearts of other men. I will not lead you. And the creatures changed. They changed from bright, shining creatures to demons. And the demons leapt on him and started to tear him apart. But just at that moment, the disciples, who had been looking for him long in the wilderness, came up and they drove the demons away. And they took Antony to a monastery and healed him. And as soon as he could get up, he hobbled out and said, thank you for saving me. But you know, that was my redemption. Either I was going to be redeemed, either I was going to die or no, but that was up to God. But what was going to happen was at last my pride would leave me. And so saying, he hobbled out of the monastery, off into the rocks, where the demons awaited. And they leapt down and tore him apart. And then his disciples came running out after him. And when they saw what had happened, they wept and wept and wept. And they begged the demons to slay them also. And the demons, you know, they laughed at humanity. They laughed at their pride in martyrdom, as much as their pride in deeds. And the disciples prayed. They prayed for redemption. Redemption for themselves and for Antony. Redemption from this pride. And a fire came. God listened to their prayer. A fire came down from heaven. A white fire. And in the flame, the demons were burned. And Antony, reforged, stepped out anew. And it was said from that day, he lived a true life of Christ. A life that was not proud in itself, but only proud